minutes or whatever. So first of all, welcome everyone. We are live and we are excited to be here with Burst into Books, which is a phenomenal organization that works on literacy in urban communities and is doing a phenomenal work in this way. Today, we are talking about the U.S. Census and why the census is important. What does it mean? Where are we going with this? How does it affect communities of color? How does it affect all communities in America? And we've got a wonderful panel here of people who are experts in this area. And so I want to introduce them, and I'm going to shut up and let them talk because I'm just excited to have the folks here. Joyce makes the face that you're never going to shut up. I probably won't, Joyce. You can blame my mother for that. But so we first of all have Michael Holmes, who is a census coordinator for CAPS. Hello, Mr. Holmes. How are you? Welcome and thank you for joining us.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
We have Ms. Nisa Neely, who is a partnership specialist with the United States Census. Hello, how are you, ma'am?
Hi there. How are you? Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. And last but not least, we have someone, and I hate to be partial on this, but I'm going to just I got to introduce this person a little differently. Everyone, this is Joyce Chapman. Now, Joyce Chapman has a lot of titles. She's a coordinator for Phalanx Family Services. She's working with the U.S. Census in that role. She's a community organizer, chair of the Far South Community Action Council. She's created the Roseland Neighborhood CDC. I mean, you name it. But most directly, Joyce is someone who years and years ago, when I decided that I wanted to run for alderman in the 9th Ward of the city of Chicago, Ms. Chapman came, set me down, looked me up and down, and as if I was coming to date her daughter or something like that, because she's so protective of her community, to see if I would be worthy of coming to date her daughter, her community. And blessedly, I passed the test. And she has been a wonderful friend since that time. So Joyce Chapman, welcome. And thank you for being with us tonight. All right. So everyone, I'm going to start with the simple questions for the folks in the cheap seats, right? They're not thinking about the census. Census doesn't matter to them. They're thinking about paying bills and getting groceries and all these other kind of things. Why on earth should they even be listening to a conversation about the U.S. Census? What does it have to do with them? You guys can hop in. I'm totally fine with that.
Well, let me start, because we've been having a lot of conversations about the response rates in the Black community in particular, and why those response rates are not reflective of other rates in other communities. And I think a lot of it has to do with this whole education process, right? So we've not been educated, or we've not even put a lot of energy and effort into educating our community around the importance of the census. And I think that is really blocking our ability to secure resources for our community at the same time, because people don't understand the way those numbers are being used, the way that data is being used, and how it affects our resources. So I think a lot of it is, we just got to figure out how to communicate better, how important it is to be documented. And the simple thing I'm saying to a lot of people right now is I didn't know until I really got, involved in this a lot, that you could use the census just to be documented that you existed.
That's very important. Joyce, why are you, as someone who is a community organizer, who really, and I say this with all sincerity, is one of those warriors that I have seen in the community that cares deeply. Why is the census important to you?
Because one of the things that we do, people of color in the Black and brown community, my people, my hood, my community, is that we're good at one of the first things I know we're good at is complaining. We don't have this and we don't have that. I said the importance of the census, you all. We got to be counted to know that we have 10,000 people in the block radius. I'm just using it as an example. Block radius, knowing that all the wealth that could come and resources that come behind it. But and again, people say, well, Joyce, in the light of what's happening, like this, but I have a little struggle now, because in light of what's happening with this whole nation's uprising about this police brutality again, that Why, see, Joyce? Why should I be counted? It doesn't matter to us in the community. I said, yes, it does. More of the older or the mature or the senior population is the one. When I speak to them, I've already done it, honey. I already did it, baby. Same day I got it, I put it back. Yes, I did. Yes, bless you, bless you. We have did over from failings, and I'm sure Mike knows it too. COVID-19, we have did more reaching into the homes of people to say, this is a well-being check. We had to, avert it to a different type of conversation. This is a well-being check. How are you doing? Da 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 da. But did you fill the census? Do you know it's very important to be counted for your city? It could go for police, more policing, more education, more pavement, more this. I lose a congressional seat or two. And then that sparks a conversation, and then they say, and so I leave with most of it, yes, I will. I have done it already. So yes, that's why it's one of the things. And one of the other things is that for me, it's so cute and profound that I was talking to my granddaughter. She's to be a window smith. And she said, Grandma, why are you doing that census? Always talk so much. And I told her about the importance of the census. Education is a preview of the census count. And she did a census video for me. And now she can talk about the census.
Wow, that is awesome. Miss Neely, you are obviously have got a long history in this work. Can you tell us what has been the problem for someone who doesn't know what has been the history around this? Obviously, you do this work. Has undercounting been a big problem?
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, yes, there are what we call hard to count populations, and also we have low response service areas. So we definitely do know that there are some challenges historically with certain zip codes, or we call them tracts. So basically it's like when you break down a zip code into sections. So we definitely are able to look historically at numbers. And even today, in virtually real time, we can give you your response rates based upon where people live right now. And it's actually open facing on the internet to the public, where if you're concerned about your own neighborhood and you want to see how your response rates are doing for self-response, you can actually check for yourself. And I can even share that online when we move along in the conversation. But yes, there are some definite challenges. And quite often unfortunately, for various reasons, there's a strong distrust of government. And for some people, it's a very big deal to respond to the census because they're not sure about where their information's going, who's collecting it. And we are really trying to remind people that the census is completely confidential. There's no sharing of information between other government agencies or law enforcement, which is very important because look, the census does not care who lives in your home as far as law enforcement goes. The census is truly a count of persons. So if you have 10 people living in your 2-bedroom apartment, the census makes no judgment about that.
Right.
The census just literally needs to know how many people are there to help provide services for people today and in the future. So having a count of people literally helps to prepare for urban planning, even in rural areas. It helps to decide if roads need to be widened. It helps to decide about development. There's so many factors that go into making big decisions, whether it's governmental decisions or business decisions, knowing the population, knowing who's there. So back to your original question about why the apprehension, why people refuse. Some people are just apathetic. You know, there's people who literally, they don't vote. They're just not engaged, period. So, you have those people. So those are definitely hard to count, folks, because they're just not community connected. So we have to find ways, and we're always looking for ways to connect with folks. That's why we reach out to community partners to try to help to spread the message. There's also
Well, you mentioned something about rural areas, which I think is very interesting. So the hardest to count areas in America are Hawaii, New Mexico, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Arizona, West Virginia. These are places that you don't necessarily consider part of the, obviously, well, that's not true. Part of them are the Black community, right, in southern areas like Louisiana, Arkansas, very heavily. But part of these communities are indigenous communities, Hawaii and New Mexico. These are places where indigenous people are not being counted. And so this counting is a big, big issue. I want to talk about in a moment the Constitution, because I think this whole question of representation has some historic legs there.
Yes.
But I want you guys to let me understand why this is not just an urban issue. It's not just a Black issue. This is a universal American issue of being counted.
Absolutely. It's crucial that everyone is counted from every ethnic group, every demographic group. It's so critical for knowing who's here. It also helps to paint a picture historically, and we can get into that later, but literally the census is a historic record. It's been going on since 1790. That was the first census count. So looking back from 1790 through today, when you look at census information, you're literally looking at history. You're seeing your own ancestors, where they lived, how they moved, how they migrated. You're seeing how cities have gone from being non-existent to now this is an actual town that started off with 5 people, and now there's 500 people, and then 10 years later it boosted to 50,000 people. The census is so important for so many different reasons. Sure. So that's why it's critical that everyone is counted.
Mr. Holmes, you want to hop in on that, and maybe you can hit that question, or I'd love to talk to you, both you and Ms. Chapman, about strategies and what you guys are doing in the community to get people to be counted.
Yeah, I want to kind of add a little bit what Nisa was saying. I was on a call earlier, and they were talking about response rates in different areas, right? Mm-hmm. So the response rates in a lot of our, white communities are right now in the 60s and 70s%, right? So that speaks to this point I was trying to make earlier about how our community does not gravitate to this process. And we got to figure that out, because that 70% response rate in that other community is going to draw the attention of those policymakers and those individuals making decisions about resources. So it's critical that we understand that unless we figure out how to communicate how important this process is, our community is always going to be sort of in the background of that conversation that takes place when they're talking about distribution of resources. Mm-hmm. And I've sat in that policy seat long enough to know that if I can't justify the existence of those bodies, then I can't push those resources in that direction. So it's something we just got to figure out. And I think, as we look at these various strategies, and one thing I want to say about Illinois, the Legislative Black Caucus in Illinois made a strong push to get money put into the budget for the census solely so that community-based agencies can get access to those dollars and utilize those community-based agencies to count their own community. And I think that is going to make a significant difference in this particular count.
Ms. Chapman, talk to me about what you're doing out there in the streets. How are you getting people aware of these issues, and what are some of the barriers that you're facing?
From January 1 to March 6th, we was on almost every corner, every school, every event, every street corner and everything. But due to the COVID, our last big public event was Election Day. And we were setting up in some of the polling places, and that was the opportunity because people were coming in to vote, to have a conversation, to give them some literature. Of course, we're doing phone banking, and slowly but surely we're out in the club. We do the mask giveaway, and Crazy Joyce, that's me. I forgot that social distancing for a moment. And I'm just up on the people's car talking to them about the census and stuff. So you see the video, that's just me being careful about that 6 feet. Mm-hmm. We're trying to do the phone calls is important. I heard Mike say about our area, what we got. We're in the 59, 57% on our census tract that responding. So our response rate has been pretty good. I think our team is out there, and then one of our team members is Dr. Wilson, and respectfully, she's very loquacious, and she can really get a person to say that no to a yes. And most of the times that she has been her sister has been our number one winner getting phone banking. So that helps a lot. But now the city let us get opened up a little bit more. The conversation we have during our CAC Zoom meetings. Now they're saying, Joyce, CPS is letting them the marquees, the school marquees. They're putting the census information on the school marquees and then upload it into the class dojo. So the principals got it. What else? The network chiefs are very amenable to every time I say since they said census 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Now, I'm not that savvy about social media. I know how to text. But yes, Valence is using, I'm sure all the other community partners are using the social media, and we text and blast it out.
Yeah. So for full disclosure, not that, there's anything here in terms of money or whatever, but I worked with you guys back in February with our production 1619, the musical that we've been doing. And we were very happy to be able to be a platform and connecting point for the community with the census. And I just honestly see you all everywhere. Every group I'm with, every initiative I'm in, it's like, hey, we got to get the census. And that's really cool. I feel like you're getting your word out, and I feel like it's having an impact. But I want to talk about history for a second, because you mentioned the first census, Ms. Neely, was passed that happened in 1790. Well, in 1787, the Constitution was ratified, and when it was ratified, it was only ratified under the promise that we would have a 3/5 compromise. Now, I teach political science, so if you guys can just give me a second, because I think people don't understand what the 3/5 compromise was. The 3/5 compromise was not promoted by the South, but by the North. Let me say that again. The 3/5 compromise was not promoted by the South, but by the North. The Southern states wanted for African Americans to be counted so that they could get their population numbers up and have more power in the Senate and the House. It was actually the North that said we don't want them to be counted, and they struck the deal on 3/5. Now, many people, as they should, look at this and say we were counted as 3/5 of human beings, but this was more even about a statement about representation than it even was about our identity. So even back then, representation was key. It was critical. It was where the money was, where the power was. It was all about representation. And these states did not even ratify the Constitution until we got that right. Fast forward to 2020, we recognize representation matters. And we've lost in the state of Illinois record numbers of people. Cook County lost the most people of any county in America in the last 10 years. I want to know for you all, from your work, what have been the political ramifications of us being undercounted? How has that impacted us in our day-to-day lives, politically, socially, and otherwise?
It's made it very difficult even for our elected officials to argue the point that resources should even be in their own districts. Because people are using the data, they're using the numbers. So this whole big question about all these people leaving Chicago, it makes it very hard to say that, the west side or the south side of Chicago should have X number of dollars to do economic development, or even, rebuild a social service fabric of those communities, because now they're saying that those people are not there. One of the things that we did when we started off in this particular venture is that we wanted to make sure we counted people, so even if there was some dispute about the count, we can have documentation to support the fact that we literally counted people in these particular communities. So we have a collaboration organization that's working with us. So we actually hired a communication person. So social media, all the platforms are covered. We did the campaign where we put the yard signs out. We did the door-to-door. We're doing the buy ads with the radio. We're doing everything we possibly can. But one of the things that we specifically did, we thought, was tailor the language and tailor the message to our community, and not let it be broad where people didn't really understand what we were asking them to do. So we tried to really make this a sort of a black approach and use black people to do that so that we can at least get a positive response and people be educated at the same time of how important it is.
And I'm sure that other communities are doing the same thing, right? Indigenous communities, Latino communities, right? So to really connect. So Ms. Neely, let's talk about and Ms. Chapman, either one, the political ramifications. We know that from what I understand, we've lost a representative in the Congress in our area in the last, I think it was the last 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. And we are looking at the potentially, I mean, with the population loss that we would have in the next census, we could lose more representation, right? What is going on politically? I know that we're talking about representatives, talking about funding. What are the consequences here if we do not, if we're not counted?
Ms. Chapman, do you want me to go?
I think you can go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, for us, just speaking to.
We're overly polite, and we're also.
Well, just speaking. Well, I'll take. Well, one of the things that was brought to me is that we lose 2 to 3.
Oh, okay. I think we're losing Ms. Chapman there a little bit. 2
to 3 congressional seats. We could lose 2 to 3 congressional seats if we do not get the right count, and that's going to be, that will be an impact, especially within our Black and brown communities. And so every time we get this opportunity to say, hey, take 10 minutes, 10 questions, 10 minutes. Doug Fresh said 10 minutes. 10 minutes, Doug Fresh, and that's all it takes to do the census. We do not want to, but then people say, well, so what, Joyce, about losing elected officials? They don't do anything. Well, we got to make the system be accountable to us. And that's where another facet come in. But at the end of the day, the only thing I can say, 10 minutes, 10 questions, do your thing.
Yeah, Ms. Neely, go ahead.
No, that's an excellent point. That all of that is excellent, and it's very important because apportionment, basically it's called apportionment, and so that's legislative representation. So the census numbers today, so when we complete our census, when we respond to today, we are determining our representation for tomorrow. So we're looking at our U.S. congressmen. So that is our voice in Washington, D.C. So currently we have our United States Congress people who are representing us, and we have some strong representation right now. They have tenure, they serve on wonderful committees. So they're great voices for Illinois right now. So if we lose one of those voices, that means that however they redistrict, there's going to be a seat that we'll lose, but also the Congress people that remain will have to cover more territory. So instead of being able to be more in tune with the needs of a smaller area, now they're going to be spread even more thinly. Like there's going to be more ground for them to cover. So it's just like when you talk about class sizes for our classrooms with teachers trying to handle so many students. So you have one congressperson trying to handle so many issues for so many of their constituents. So losing a congressional seat has a lot of ramifications. So we definitely want to make sure we're counted. Now, that's just on the federal level. Right. But if you remember, when they redistrict, when fewer people are counted, that also affects smaller districts as far as your state senate, and also even your aldermanic seats can change. Like there's several ways that redistricting can change your political landscape. So we're talking about dollars, we're talking about history, but the thing is, when your representation changes, that changes almost everything, because if you're in one district now and they redraw, now you have a different alderman, or you have a different Cook County commissioner, or there's so many things that will change when we're not counted. And also, when you look, if the numbers are incorrect, so say there are the people in this particular zip code or in this particular district, whether it's the federal level, local, state, whatever. So say the people truly are there, but they didn't count themselves. So now you have a representative who's speaking for people who are not counted on paper. So when they go to propose something in Congress or on the floor, and they're saying people in my district really need this school or really need this or really need a hospital, the numbers don't match. So it's so important that we count ourselves and that we count all of our kids, even the newborns that were born as of April 1st. When we do this, we're actually, you're doing a service for yourself. You're actually helping yourself. So if you don't want to think of other people, just think of yourself. Just count yourself for you. And just as you were reflecting on representation matters and the 3/5 rule and bringing it forward to today, this is the ultimate way to voice, to make your voice heard. In addition to voting, like in elections, counting yourself in the census says, I am here. I am a person. I am a human being. I am a full human being, which is something that our ancestors weren't even able to do. So I can say, even just by talking to my own family members as a child, completing the census, there's been a shift, because completing the census was very important to my great-grandparents and to my grandparents, and because they felt that they had the power that they did not have before. Right. So to them, it was a point of pride. It was very important. They were able to declare, I am the head of this household. These are my children. This is my wife. So I think if we are able to relay these messages, especially in this time of turmoil, if we can really help to paint the picture that it's not just some random piece of paper, it's not just the government trying to get in your business, it's not just some arbitrary thing to do. It is very important, and it literally declares that you are here.
You know, it's interesting because we currently have 18 congressional representatives in the state of Illinois. And Ms. Chapman mentioned that we are really under threat of potentially losing 2 to 3 based on this census. That is huge, folks. That is huge. We are we're the 5th largest number of congressional representatives in the country in terms of our population. And those of you guys who may have not remember civics, but as you know, we get the number of representatives based on the population that we have. In every state, we have 2 senators. But the truth is, on this, if we lose population, we lose representation. Okay? Y'all should use that one. I don't know if y'all have used it.
Yes.
I've been hanging around Reverend Jackson a lot lately, going to push and stuff like that. So please forgive me for rhyme, but you know what I'm saying? Okay, if we lose population, we lose representation. But it's very, very true. And we talk about school funding, and we talk about anti-violence programs, we talk about food in our community. We talk about the trauma center that we were arguing about on the South Side for a very long time. Without population, we don't get those things. And so it's so important. I want you guys, we're going to wrap up here shortly, but I want you all to talk about, I think it's critical for us to really discuss what our civic responsibilities are. And to your point, Ms. Neal, you said, hey, my grandparents, whatever, it was a point of pride to fill out the census. It was a point of pride to vote for many people. And I think even for those of us who really get that in voting, a lot of us don't get that when it comes to the census, that really it's the same level. Right. What would you all tell people who believe that they don't matter, that doesn't matter, voices matter? And then also, I know Ms. Chapman got a lot of background on this, I'm sure you guys do as well, that their votes don't matter. Like, what's the point? Like, I'm going to vote and I'm going to get the representation or whatever, but it's not going to change my life on a day-to-day basis. Talk to me, talk to our people, let people know why they are wrong in this way, or why they can have a better thought in this way.
I'm just going to jump in. No, go ahead, Joyce.
Joyce, you go ahead.
This is my mantra. This is my slogan. You woke up as of 2 weeks ago. You should know your representation is very important. You must be, I tell people to get involved. You got to get involved. You can't always push the button and say what's wrong. Get involved, to be engaged, to get empowered for your own empowerment so you can be self-empowered for your family, for your community. Get off the block and spread it around the community. And so people say, oh, Joyce, that's fine and dandy. But yes, it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but it will make a difference. You will see the positive impact that your growth will do for the community as a whole. So it's very important. I'm getting swelled up here. It's very important to be counted, ladies and gentlemen. No, I got to simmer down. I don't know if you had, because of the messaging, but I've been knowing Mike for over 40 years, 40 plus years. It's a long time, Mike. But the thing is that he's like a mentor to me. He had to tell me, usually slow down, but my passion for my community, my passion for my people, sometimes I just want to shake the people and say, hey, don't you know? But like I said earlier, the seniors know. They get it, just like you said. They understand the concept of being get out and vote. But it's going to take a little longer. Maybe today, tomorrow, but we're going to make that impact. And I hope, as of this past couple of weeks, what's been happening in our nation, our country, our streets, our community, that the people realize you are important. That's what they're saying, Black Lives Matter. You are important. So get counted. If all those people got counted, the impact was made on the city of Chicago and the surrounding communities of communities. Thank you.
Yeah, so Joyce is trying to tell my age over there. But listen, the most important thing I think now, particularly in relationship to what's going on in our community today, if we don't have the right representation, if we don't have the people that really are committed to our community, then the type of things that have been occurring that even caused all of this turmoil is going to continue to occur. The numbers help us create the representation that we're looking for. The process itself helps us to be able to do what the question is being asked now, answer the question, how are we going to rebuild moving forward? Those resources are going to be critical to our community, and we're going to have people there to help drive that process. One of the things that this census probably played into 2010 census, you just had the federal government create these bills to push all this money back into these communities. Illinois got almost $4 billion, but that $4 billion was reflective of the population of the state. That's how they came up with that number. So all the people that may have not gotten counted in 2010 impacted the amount of money that we need right now to address the pandemic. So we have to figure out ways to help people understand just how important this process is. People always say, well, I don't like politics, or politics don't do anything for me. Let us not be at the table when those decisions are being made. Let us not be in the room when that leadership is saying this is what they want to do.
Ms. Neely, I'm going to give you a last word on this, but you just reminded me, Mr. Holmes, of when I was running for office years ago. I met a state senator who sat me down, and he said very clearly something that I've hung on to and share with my students all the time. And I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but in politics, you're either at the table or you're on the menu. And you're at the table. And I think it's critical that we get to be at the table. Otherwise, we're what's being served. Ms. Neely.
Exactly.
I don't know how I can top that because it's absolutely true. Civic engagement is more than a phrase or more than just some novel idea. If we can motivate everyone, especially with the energy and the vibe that we have right now, as I mentioned a little bit ago, historically, the numbers have been low in certain areas. And sometimes you can literally, I think I told Mike this before. I looked at our historic numbers, and I actually drove into some of those areas where I wasn't familiar, just to kind of see how the neighborhoods looked. And there was a direct correlation, just completely unscientific. Me looking at the numbers, looking at the zip codes, looking at the suburban towns, looking at the names. The higher the response rate for their census numbers, the more development, the more vibrant their little downtown areas, like the more industry. There's a direct correlation between response numbers and results. So just as Mike was saying, there are some areas that are in the 70 percentile, 80 percentile. Typically, these areas are getting their funding.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they know the importance of the census. There are probably other variables too, but the bottom line is, whatever it is, they're getting the numbers done. So the representation, the civic engagement, the fact that if you know just as it was mentioned before, if you know the power of representation, so literally, just as you said with the 3/5 rule, the fact that the South knew the value of each person, it's a direct correlation. There's an estimated amount when you count each person. There's an estimated amount of how much you will bring back to the community just by filling out your census. Mm-hmm. And when you skip it, you're basically giving money away and giving resources away. And remember, this is today. So just as it was mentioned about how we're in this pandemic today, the lack of funding and resources is a result in part to the fact that there were low numbers in 2010 and in 2000. So sometimes you can actually look at areas with the low numbers and you can see how there's more boarded up buildings. Like I had one gentleman at one of my presentations before COVID who told me he's never done the census, and he was about 60 years old. He said he's never done it, never really cared. And then I asked him about his community, and is it more vibrant than it was 30 years ago, or is it less? And he said, oh, it's less. He was like, come on now, it's less. There's boarded up buildings, and there used to be, all these different businesses, and there were 2 black banks over here, and we had this and we had that, and the parks used to have these great programs, and he started getting angrier as he was reflecting about how it used to be in his neighborhood. And I said, well, you know what? You can help make the change by responding to your 2020 census. And it's not a cure-all for everything, but any money and resources that are coming into your community, that's better than no money or less money coming into your community. So when the city has to cut funding, if it's just like if you have your own budget, just think of your own personal budget. And say you get a side job because you want to get a car. So you're going to use your side job money to pay your car payment. So you have your household budget where you take care of everything else, but now you want this new car, so you get a little side job for that. So everything's going great. You got your side job money paying for your car payment, everything's cool. Now you lose your side job. So that was extra revenue that was coming into your budget. So now take away the side job, so we're going to call that the federal dollars that were coming in to help supplement your community. So now you have no more side job money. So now you still have to pay for this car out of the core budget that you already had. So now what are you doing? You're going to start trimming. You're going to start trimming the budget, which means you're going to start trimming some of the extras. So you're not getting your hair done anymore or your nails done anymore. So put that as far as a municipality. Put that in the city of Chicago. The parks used to have this program for the kids, but now, well, we have to trim that because we need money for this over here. See, so sometimes we have to paint the picture. So when I was sharing that with the gentleman, it was like a light bulb went off in his head. Like, oh, I get it. So sometimes it's really finding a way to convey the message, and
absolutely.
making it relatable and making it real.
Yeah, they say that.
And losing that side job money.
Well, they say that all politics is local, and I think that is a very important example of how
Absolutely.
what you just said. That you bring it down to the level that impacts us directly, and then we begin to care. It's harder to think about these things in a larger macro level. So we're going to wrap up, guys. But I want to give you guys all a chance to give a final word to the people. So if you want to give us just something short here, one last thing to remember and think about when it comes to the census and our community. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Holmes.
Yeah, well, thanks. I really appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity. What I would encourage everyone to do is to take that 10-minute experience, fill out the questionnaire, get the census in, and once
I love it.
Done,
10-minute experience. I love it. Put that on a t-shirt. Yeah.
Once it's done, though, then encourage folks to follow up and make sure those resources get back to your community.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Miss Neely?
Yes, I will reiterate, please. It's very short. It's self-response. Right now, due to COVID-19, we should have been looking forward to having people out and about. Our census takers that are historically famous, they should be prepping to hit the streets. However, right now we're no contact. So it's definitely easy to respond because you can maintain social distancing if you have internet available, and also if you have a phone. So it works on smartphones, or if you're on a traditional computer, if you have an internet connection. So it's really easy. The phone service is easy. It's in several different languages. And it's available for everyone. We've heard all kinds of rumors about who cannot respond to the census. The census counts everyone, whether you're a citizen, whether you're undocumented, whether you have a criminal history. There have been so many rumors about why you cannot complete the census. And the census is truly about the individual person, not their job, not what they've done in the past. None of that is relevant for the census. It's purely a count of people, and we need you to make sure that you're counted.
Thank you so much. Ms. Chapman.
Well, everyone said everything, but 10 minutes, Dougie Fresh, like I said 10 minutes, Dougie Fresh, and it will impact you, your family, and your community.
Thank you, Ms. Chapman. I thought Dougie was 6 minutes, but you're giving us 10. Are you saying we can get it done in 6 minutes, maybe? You know.
That's the remix. That's the extended version.
No, it's 10.
Remix. I love it.
Thank you. But back in the day, now, see, when I was listening to the music, it was 10 minutes, Dougie Fresh.
It changed over time, right? Okay.
I'm really telling my age.
Whatever. Well,
thank you, Ted.
I want to thank all of you guys for joining us tonight, for educating our community on such an important issue. And I wish you the best in your work. People, we have to stand up and be counted. It is so important. And if you have not learned that tonight, I'm going to find you and we're going to send you to your house. And they're going to come. You got 3 evangelists here for the census here. And you don't want to meet them on the streets, okay? Just go ahead and say I'm going to count it and keep it moving. So
all right, great.
Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful night. Thank you guys for watching. And I'm sorry, real quickly, they can go to, if they want to get counted, they can go to where? The website?
Yes, it's super easy. It's 2020census.gov. So GOV, 2020 census.gov.
2020census.gov. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks a lot. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.